Hello and welcome. Today's video is part of a release party for Blue Night Rubber Stamps. If you are unfamiliar with them, they're kind of a neat company. They have a lot of different styles of designs. Today I'm going to be working with a coffee cup, and I was going to make a background for the card using some distress ink. So I wanted to show you how to do this because a couple people asked me about it. I cut down some cardstock. This is glossy cardstock, and I'm working on a non-porous surface. This is a glass mat. So what I'm going to do is the four colors of Distress Oxides I picked to work with were Rusty Hinge, Antique Linen, Walnut Stain, and Vintage Photo. And what I'm going to do is take and smush some of these colors onto this mat. I'm going to start with these three. Antique Linen is really light. I'm not sure how useful it's going to be for this, but I pulled it out just in case. And then I'm going to spray this with water. And I'm going to move these out of the way. And then I'm just going to take a piece of this cardstock and start smushing it or dipping it into the ink. And I have it pretty good colored, and I'm going to set this aside to dry. I could use a heat gun, but I'm not in a hurry to make these kinds of backgrounds. I like to make more than one so I can stick them in my stash. So I'm going to make several here, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're all done. And I'm adding as many layers as I need to get that spilled coffee look to these pieces of paper. I stopped using the Rusty Hinge color because it had a little bit of red to it, and although I think it's good as an accent color, I didn't want that to be the primary color. I really think the Walnut Stain and the Vintage Photo captures the look I'm going for of the spilled coffee. So again, just playing around until I like the way they look. And periodically I take a paper towel and I'm cleaning my work surface. And it's really nice because the glass mat wipes up very easily. And I was never like, I don't know, when this came out, this glass mat came out, it was like, oh, no big deal, you know, who cares? I already have a glass mat. But if you do mixed media stuff like this, it's such an easy way to clean up. And that was what I didn't like about mixed media, was how messy it all is. And so this is kind of nice to give, I don't know, I would still never consider myself a mixed media artist, but it's a nice way to control some of the mess when doing projects like this. And I do like the way these backgrounds look. And I do like that it's kind of just, you get what you get. It's kind of a neat, let yourself go, experiment. And actually, speaking of experimenting, I had one thought. I wanted to try something. So what I have next to me here is some shimmer spritz. And I've been using water, but I think what I'm going to do is add a little shimmer spritz to this, just to see on a few of these, not all of them, how that looks and if that gets picked up at all or if it's just lost in there. So I'm making a total of 8 backgrounds. I won't use all 8 in this video, but let me add some more here, color. You hear a little person in the background. That is my son playing with my stamp stuff as I work here. So I added a little water. I'm also going to add, again, a little more of this shimmer spritz. Ooh, that's kind of a cool little spill. Try to not wreck that, but add some color at the top. Okay. And I do like that Rusty Hinge in the background, but I am glad that I stopped adding it because it's kind of dropping back and it's a nice little accent color. Well, I wasn't trying to add shimmer to all of them, but as I keep dipping them, I think certain parts are getting it. I don't think that's a bad thing. A little glitter never hurt anyone, right? And you can do this as many times as you need to. I'm just adding little bits of color here and there, and as they dry, I decide, yeah, this needs a little something. One of the things that people don't like about this technique, for example, is this one's drying. It looks very dull, but I'm going to show you how to bring this back to life, but we need to let these all dry first. So at this moment, I'm just getting some pigment on the paper, trying to get the look that I want, that spilled coffee look. And then I'm going to let these all dry. And I'm starting to be pretty happy. Some of these still could use some. Let's get some walnut. Whoop. And more vintage photo. Just if you were curious, you can see the antique linen in here a little bit. It definitely gets overpowered by the other two colors, but I think it was worth adding. And another look this looks like is marble. So if you switched up your colors and you didn't use all browns and you wanted a marble look, you could get that by doing the same thing. I'm pretty happy with the 8 backgrounds I created, so let me clean up my mess here. Again, very easy to do. And I'm going to let these dry. So I'm going to give them about 10 minutes and I'll be back. Okay, so these are all dry. We have 8 panels here. There's a whole variety of them. So there's some with a really rust, there's some with, this one has a little sparkle to it. So I have a total of 8 that I created. And I won't use them all today, but like I said, I'm going to stash them away and then I'll have them so when I need a quick card I can always just go ahead and reach for this and I already have an instant background. But out of all the 8 I was going to pick these 2. I picked one that had a little red in it and I picked one that had a little sparkle into it. So that shimmer spritz, at least so far, has left a little bit of a glittery background. I'm not sure if the camera will pick that up or not. I know the cameras aren't very good at picking up shimmer spritz. So alright, so I'm going to set these aside. And I've already colored the 2 coffee cups with my Copics. If you're interested in the colors I used, I'll post these on my blog. These are the 3 stamps that come in this stamp set. So we have the coffee cup, which we've already colored, so I'm going to set that aside. And then we have the words, but the words are giant. And I wanted to let this background show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the words apart and use part of it on the front and the other part of this and the inside of my card. Alright, so I grabbed my scissors and I'm just going to carefully cut between the word coffee and the sentiment underneath. And then I'm just going to use my scissors to clean up some of this rubber so I don't have any excess picking up ink. And I'm just trimming this off the bottom part as well. So I'm going to use walnut stain, the same ink that we used in the background, to stamp coffee onto this white piece of, or I'm sorry, it's vanilla cardstock. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to stamp it one more time just for good measure, because I can. And I'll put my walnut stain away. Very nice. And because this is a pigment ink, or pigment hybrid ink, I'm going to set that aside to dry so I don't smear it. I'm going to take the coffee stamp out of my MISTI, and now I'm going to put, I might cut this even apart a little, and I'll show you why. I think I'm going to try it. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to cut the bottom word off, and they're very close, but I think I can get my scissors between the letters and they'll still stamp properly, so I think I'm okay. So I'm cutting off the very bottom, and I'll show you why, because I think the way this was designed was very clever, and I'm thinking that when I use this, I'm generally going to want to stamp them in different colors. Using the walnut stain again, or yeah, is that what it's called? Walnut stain, what a funny name, to stamp on the inside of my card. And I like it, it's kind of, this has got kind of a snarky little inside. So it makes me nice. So I'm going to pull this out, and I'm just going to trim off this extra rubber here so we can avoid a little mishap. And here we can place this down just the same way it was angled or intended to be. And I'm going to grab a red ink, I think, something nice and really bold. Okay, so I grabbed some Gina K Red Hot ink, and I'm inking up the last part of this sentiment. And I am purposely stamping this on an angle, and it says makes me tolerable. So I think that's pretty funny. And I like that the tolerable is in a bright color. So just because I can, I'm stamping that again. And then we have the inside of our card done. So now we're going to set that aside. Set the rest of our sentiment aside. And let's go back to these pieces. So these are the two that I'm going to use today to make into a card. They are a little drab, and that's why a lot of people don't like this. The colors, when they dry, they seem chalky or very muted, and they lose a lot of that intensity. But what we can do is treat the paper with something called Distress Glaze, and that is going to pull the pigment back to the surface. It's going to make the colors vibrant again, and it also makes the paper waterproof. So if you want to do any stamping on this paper, you need to do that before you apply any Distress Glaze. So I'm also going to trim these down just by 1/4 inch all the way around, but I'm going to do all my stamping first. So I'm going to put this into the Misty, and I need to do a little bit of playing around with placement. I the coffee banner down so it's just the height of the word coffee, but I left it the same length so it's still 4 1/4 inches like a band across the card. I'm imagining that the coffee cup is going to sit on top, and then the steam would be coming out of the coffee cup. Okay. Now I recommend using an ink like VersaFine to stamp on this, and you need to let that dry before you apply the Distress Glaze. So making this up with VersaFine, and I'm going to stamp that on top. And I do recommend you use a positioner, just because if it doesn't stamp right, you can add, restamp. But that's kind of what the look I'm going for here. I'm going to stamp this one more time. Set this aside to dry, and just because I have this all set up, I'm going to stamp it on this as well. Perfect. Set this aside. Alright, I am going to make another one of these coffee banners and another card base for my other card while these dry, and then I'll show you how to put this all together. Okay, I think these are dry. I'm hoping. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So let's break out the Distress Glaze. I store my little sponge inside because you shouldn't be using this for much of anything else. And I just give it a little twist, not a lot. You don't want like a clump of this on the end of your dauber. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slowly buff out this panel. And hopefully you can see in this corner how it brings the color back to life. And now it's starting to look more like a coffee and not a white grungy panel. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to take the paper towel and buff the surface. Now what I'm noticing is, and see, this is where you live and learn, and you know what, and I think for this project I'm going to be okay with it. It's kind of taken off the Versamark ink a little, and it's okay because I can still see it, and I like that because steam isn't supposed to be so bold. It kind of softened that VersaFine down, and I'm actually really okay with it. However, I mean, just keep in mind that it's really hard to stamp on a surface like this. I thought the black, once it soaked in, would take, but I'm guessing that it's just that Distress Glaze is just... Who knew? VersaFine is destructible. Cool, so I'm just getting the extra glaze off of this. And I'm going to let that dry. I do like that. And now let's do this other panel. And let's see what happens to this one. Okay, so I'm going to put the Distress Glaze away. This one, oh, actually, let's do this edge a little bit. I didn't go over the VersaFine just to see the difference and if this stayed on here, and it seems to be the Distress Glaze that pulls the VersaFine off. So I guess if you're clever, I don't know. See, I can't leave well enough alone. Can't leave well enough alone. This one doesn't seem to be rubbing off as much. So now I'm not sure why the other one came off. Okay. Alright, I'm going to put the Distress Glaze away. Well, I decided, I'm not sure why all this happened, and I can't explain it, so there you go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can stamp the black on top. And I'm doing this more of an experiment than anything. Yes, I may have those black lines in the background, but I don't care. It's just more steam. I just want to see what happens, because the last time I tried to stamp on top of this, it was not good. So let's see. And it might just wipe off. Okay, well, we're just going to let this dry on here the best we can, and we're going to see how this goes. So this is all about learning, and let's make the most of that. I really like how this is coming together. So what I'm going to do on both my panels is, because I want a little bit of the vanilla to show of the card base, I'm going to trim just a little bit off, because right now it is the same size as an A2 card front. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller than an A2 card front. Okay, great. So I trimmed these down. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some glue on the back of these panels and attach them to our card. And I would make sure you're putting glue all the way out to the edges, because we did add water to these, so they are a tiny bit warped. And I'm going to be careful not to smear the, or put my hands over the steam marks. Trying to avoid smearing that as much as possible at this point. Remember, we got these cool, funny sentiments in here, make me tolerable. Oh, look at that, I just got a black fingerprint. That's alright, I can get that off with a sand eraser. I'll do that in a minute. Now I have these strips here, and we have our coffee cups. And there's a couple little design things I need to think of here. I am going to put the coffee strip down flat, but I also pulled out these brads just to kind of have a little bit of an accent. I had some that were these dark brown. So what I think I'm going to do here is use my hole punch, and I'm going to eyeball the best that I can. So decided to try, I just want to do a little bit of, I'm going to lay this piece of fun foam here, and I'm going to lay the coffee banner on top, and then decide. I do like that. I like, it kind of gives it something for the coffee to sit on. It kind of grounds the card a little bit. So I do like that, but I also wanted to try, let's stick a piece of foam under the cup. I think that might be too crazy. I like both. It doesn't look as bad as I thought. Well, in the comments you're going to have to tell me which way you prefer, and I'm going to have to decide which way to to go on my card here. I am going to use a sand eraser. If you don't have one of these, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. It doesn't fix every mistake, but if you ever get like a fingerprint on a card like I just did, you just take the sand eraser and you kind of buff the surface of the paper and it takes that right off. So that's gone, so at least that's one thing. Alright, well let's take the coffee cup up. I'm 100% sure I'm going to pop this up. So let's take some glue. Glue your words on right side up. That is my best tip for the day. Oh my gosh, how many of you guys do that stuff? It's the kind of stuff I do when I craft sometimes. Especially because a lot of times I do crafting really late at night because the toddler's asleep, like right now. So it makes a difference. Alright. Those are our two options. Coffee up, coffee down. Should I do one each way, maybe? That's a good solution. I like that. So let's do this. Let's add some foam to the back of our coffee cup. Let's do both at the same time. You could use dimensional dots. I don't know. I got in this habit and actually really like it because I can cut them to whatever size and shape I want. And if you use black or white, it's really not noticeable on your card. So, I don't know. And they say they go through the mail better. There's nothing worse than a card you make falling apart in the mail. So I'm going to make some real little ones here. And this way I'm not going to go nuts. I'm not going to go all the way around, but just around the two biggest parts of this handle. Oh, I was going to put one down and one up, wasn't I? Where were you guys on that? Well, it's too late now, so now they're both up. Yep, that's what happens when you craft late at night, friends. You can't remember things for more than a few seconds. But does help from little toddlers in the background, so I guess give and take. So forgive me. I gotta laugh at myself. Yep. Well, there is the card for Monday and the release party card. If you haven't checked out Blue Knight Rubber Stamps, I hope you do. They have a really different selection of stamps. They have a lot of silhouettes, they have a lot of scenery. Their stamps are really easy to use. So if you're interested at all, I just swing over to their blog or their webpage. I'll put the links and everything in the bottom. I hope you enjoyed these cards. I hope you leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Remember, each comment gives you a chance to win a stamp set from Blue Knight Stamps. There'll be a drawing at the end of the week. So, and all that information will also be on my blog post. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll forgive my little mistakes along the way. Have fun, guys.